Olá, bom dia. Good morning. My name is Julian Marcus from the Portugal Positive podcast, and I'm here with Pete Bampton. Welcome, Pete. Thanks for joining us.
Hey, Julian.
Hey, man. So Pete Bampton was the co-founder of the Awakened Life Project. Many people know this project in Portugal. It was a 15, 16-year adventure for Pete and the community, and an exploration and experiment in conscious community and awakening, meditation, qigong, and lots of spiritual practice. And I met Pete 7, 8 years ago as a photographer, photographing one of his community's beautiful weddings. It was a pleasure. And then recently, a year or two ago, I photographed another one. Yeah. And it was amazing to see the level of commitment to their practice and the beauty that they created for that wedding. They transformed a valley into what was like a boomland or a spiritual festival with amazing structures. I think two music stages, live music, pizza oven, and the quality of love and support that I witnessed. It was truly the most beautiful wedding I've ever photographed. Really, really enjoyed it. And then it was a surprise recently. Pete reached out to me, and we have a project birthing. We have a retreat together, and we'd like to invite the members of the Positive Portugal podcast Facebook group and YouTube channel to join us this Thursday to talk about the theme of the embodiment of the sacred masculine and feminine. We have a retreat coming up at Monte Mariposa in the Algarve, a retreat center that's dear to both of us. We both have a connection there. And we would like to invite you to an evening discussion and Zoom call on the sacred masculine and feminine, the embodiment in the individual, rather than these dualistic binary concepts. Is there anything you'd like to say about that, Pete, as we invite people to join us for a discussion, 7 o'clock Portugal time, this coming Thursday, the 25th. The Zoom code's in the description. Would you like to say a few words about the retreat? It's going to be 7 days, but a little bit more about the retreat and the discussion we're inviting people into on Thursday.
Yeah, so just to put it as simply as I can, the retreat's called the Sacred Dance of Shiva and Shakti. So Shiva as being symbolic of what we could call the sacred masculine, and Shakti of what's often called the divine feminine. And the dance is the energetic and emotional and potentially sexual dance that happens between those two poles. So my inspiration for this retreat has come out of my work over 15, 16 years with the Awakened Life Project. I have done and I've participated in and led men's groups for must be almost 25 years, something like that. So I've really learned a lot about what it means for us as men to transcend the macho jerk on one hand and what we could call the sensitive new age guy on the other, and become strong, humble, heart-opened and heart-centered men, connected to spirit. And then for women, although I didn't work as directly with the women, in latter years, I was much more closely involved with the women. And I think, women have, of course, their own challenges in terms of discovering what a true and authentic femininity is, that is not just in reaction to patriarchy, as we often see with feminism. A lot of women, becoming more equal in a man's world, but that's not necessarily what the feminine heart is really longing for. So it's really an exploration and adventure, but grounded in deep meditation. We're going to be going into silence and stillness for the first couple of days at the retreat. We really want to get sourced in the spiritual heart, where we're already fundamentally full and complete. Because the dance can really only happen when there's two full cups. If we have a half empty cup and a half empty cup, and as men, as Shiva and Shakti, men and women, we're trying to be fulfilled. We're looking for love to get love. Well, this is when we we have all the complexity and challenges that we're all very familiar with. So once we become a full and even overflowing cup as Shiva, as Shakti, well, then the dance can really begin, because then it's based potentially in ego transcending ecstasy and love, as opposed to wanting and needing and everything, that all the dramatization that comes out of a self-contracted sense of self. So we're looking to go beyond self into but fully embodied, physically, emotionally, mentally, spiritually. What Julian and I are offering is a full spectrum journey, and I'm very excited to be working with him. I just feel there's a great synergy in terms of what we're cooking up here.
Thank you, Pete, for sharing all that. Pete's also the author of a book, The Fire of the Heart, and you can find out more about his work at fireoftheheart.net. The retreat that Pete's just mentioned is there and open for enrollments. We've extended the early bird, so if you hop on over to Pete's website, you'll be able to find more information about that retreat. Also mine at relationalbodywork.org. On the homepage, you'll find a link to the retreat too. Some of the things that Pete's invited me to share there are my background in somatics and body poem. So we'll be doing, after the silent days, we'll be coming into community, into connection with others, and doing that in a way that's grounded and embodied with what's true and alive in us, rather than the many stories that we often present or carry, which may not serve us best. So we're going to come together into our individual and collective truth after a few days of silence. And I look forward to sharing some of the tools that I teach in my school to the facilitators and the practitioners. So we will also be connecting with wellness within the system, vitality and wellness, through an introduction to cranial touch. In its simplest form, it's connecting to the wellness and the blueprint of vitality and wellness that stays with us our entire life. No matter how sick and unwell someone might become, there's still the memory of vitality and health and wellness in all of us. And it's very nourishing to connect to that. And in order to do so, we have to become extremely present. We need to get out of the way of doing or being the expert, and we have to become extremely present in our touch. So this is a clothed touch. It's very easy and accessible. It's a kind of touch you can share with your grandma, or with somebody in a hospital bed. You can do it with the hand, just holding hands. We are fully receiving that person. So we're giving space through that touch for them to express their uniqueness. And in our presence, we give the opportunity for the subconscious mind to reorganize. Without talking through someone's trauma, our implicit memories have a witness, a silent witness that's truly present. So this is a kind of touch which recently I've started to call with some students just feel and follow. So it's really getting out of the way. So we'll exchange some of these touch exchanges. We'll work with body poem. Pete's going to lead meditations and daily qigong. I'm going to share some qigong practices as well. And Mariposa is beautiful, isn't it, Pete? We're going to be down in this valley. We've got like the down the valley temple space. It reminds me of Bali in the tropics down there. It's really green. We're going to be staying in cabins. It's very secluded and private and quiet. I don't think there's much phone signal down there, so people can have a digital detox. Yeah, looking forward to it. What are the dates, Pete? Just to remind people of that.
The dates are 28th of March to the
4th of April. Yeah.
So it's over the Easter holiday.
Yeah, it's an Easter retreat.
We're hoping that'll enable people to be able to come for a whole week immersion.
Yeah, and for Portuguese residents and wage earners, the early bird price stays. So we wanted to make this as accessible as possible to the Portuguese, and the people that live here and earn a Portuguese wage, we know is lower than other European countries. So we've done that. And if you come as a group, if there's 2 or more in your booking, there's a discount there too. And if you're someone that likes to have massage or one-to-ones, we have a small team of highly skilled practitioners who will be attending the retreat to support people with one-to-one sessions as well. So yeah, thank you for inviting me. It's been great to team up our forces of things that we're passionate about and see the overlap and see where we can jigsaw things together to provide a really beautiful retreat down there at Monte Mariposa. The team are excited to host us, and we're excited to be going. So please join us if you're interested in these themes that Pete's touched upon there regarding the embodiment of the sacred masculine and feminine, how that plays out no matter our gender, our sexual preference. This is about moving from binary and duality into polarity, and to charge up the polarities within us and map them. One of the things I'll be sharing is feeling into where might I need more earth, where might I need more fire in my life, and expressing that through the Qigong and the inner meditation practices, the inner sexual alchemy, and how that plays out in our life and how we might live in a more full spectrum, well-rounded way if we're aware of where we could juice up our polarity. So I'm excited to share that kind of stuff.
Juice up the polarity. That's a great summary.
Cool. Thanks, Pete. Well, yeah, Thursday night, 7 p.m. The Zoom link's in the description here. If you fancy to pop on, it's free to talk to us about this theme. There's no obligation to go on the retreat, but you might like to afterwards. This is a discussion for an hour, 7 till 8, with Pete and I around polarities and the sacred dance of the sacred masculine, feminine, Shiva and Shakti. So thank you. We're going to do a podcast soon, Pete and I, a full podcast on his experience of living in Portugal. Do you want to just finish with what 2 things struck you most and why you've stayed here so long? What is your embodied experience of 2 of the most positive things of being in Portugal and experiencing the Portuguese people?
Well, I came to Portugal in 2007 after many years of world travel, living in different countries, living in a spiritual community with many, many different nationalities, but never any Portuguese, interestingly. And very soon after I came here, I felt and recognized something, a quality in the people, and that took me a while to get a sense of how I would describe it. But the phrase that really captures it for me is a purity of heart, pureza de coração. I feel the Portuguese have access, an intuitive access to the one heart and one spirit that we all are, in a way that I have never felt in any other Occidental culture. I mean, you find it in places like India. I often say Portugal's halfway to India in that respect. But yeah, it's this purity of heart, and then the other qualities that emanate from that, which is a certain kind of innocence, humility, openness, kindness. Very, very, it's a very different experience living here in Portugal than living and growing up in England. I can definitely say that.
Yeah. Thank you, Pete. Well, a mundane example of that is before this, I said to Pete, I need to go to the post office. And this is twice now that I've sold stuff on Facebook Marketplace, and they've just MBWay'd me the money and they trust me to post it. I don't think that would happen in England, where we're both from. That's happened twice in the last 2 weeks, where someone sent me 16 or 20 euros, trusted me to send them something in the post. And that to me is also in that purity of heart, is the trust.
Yeah.
And, we've talked about this the other day, I think, that, what we project. So if I, those people I would expect would never scam someone, because they're trusting in me, sending me money before I even post them something. So that's very rare. And when I first moved to Portugal, one of the first things that happened to me and my family is we were invited to Marvão on holiday with this family. We hadn't even met them yet. We'd just exchanged some WhatsApps, and they were like, we're about to go on holiday. We've got children a similar age. Come on holiday with us. And I said to my partner, Jane, I was like, that's amazing. We vibed on a phone call, and they trusted that we would have a nice holiday together. I thought, wow, And that is humbling kind of
Yeah.
openness, innocence, and warm-heartedness. So I very much resonate with your experience, Pete. Yeah.
Yeah, and I feel that I've changed and transformed in so many ways since I've lived here in Portugal. And a big aspect of that is in my interrelationships with the Portuguese. They've softened the edges of my British reserve, whatever was still there,
Mm,
and yeah, opened my heart, really opened my heart in ways that I'm very, very grateful for.
mm, cool.
And just to say one other thing, one because
Mm,
you said two qualities, the other quality that comes to mind, it's to do with what I would call a kind of deep visionary sense of the world that we know in our hearts is possible.
mm,
So, you see that in in I believe in the Portuguese history, the age of discoveries. While we can look at it from one point of view, but it was just another colonial expansion, like so many of the other Western powers. But there was something behind that, I believe, with the Portuguese that was a little different, that had to do with uniting the world. The Portuguese made love everywhere they went. The British and the Dutch and the Spanish definitely didn't do that. And there's many other ways in which the soul, what we could call the soul of Portugal, is not about Portugal over everyone else. It's really about the universal human.
mm,
There's this sense of the soul of Portugal being about reaching out. The Portuguese soul is facing out to the Atlantic. That's why it's not really at home in the European Union, trying to follow these Anglo-Saxon values. I feel the Portuguese have a certain, yeah, you're explorers. There's a certain sense of vision. Um, you know, there's this quality of saudade, right? This in intranslatable Portuguese quality, which is which to me is it has many dimensions. On the one hand, we could just say it's kind of sorrow and this kind of sense of nostalgia, but it's also often there's a sense of spiritual longing. You know,
mm,
as I
mm.
said, that sense of the world we know in our hearts is possible, and yeah, it's the combination of these two qualities, the purity of heart and this sense of leaning into what's possible, and being open, having that sense of what Fernando Pessoa particularly saw and visualized, that the Portuguese soul do there's something that has to contribute to the evolution of consciousness. So then, of course, the other side of that that's inhibiting that is the Portuguese inferiority, in the sense that we're no good, somos pequenitos. So that's something I've always been working while I've been here to awaken Portuguese to this very rare and beautiful qualities that they have, because most Portuguese are not actually aware of it because of this embedded sense of cultural inferiority and fear. So underneath these layers of, I believe, they're cultural um, viruses, lies really, and the results maybe of a lot of historical trauma, dictatorship, and all the rest of it. Underneath these layers of fear and now consigo, I'm not capable. When you get below those layers, well, the Portuguese have so much to offer and to give.
Mm. Thanks for sharing, Pete. That brings us something back to the retreat that we're offering, the talk on Thursday around power with rather than power over. These the time of the exploradors and the crusades and all these expansion of often religious and land grabbing, asset grabbing times of the past from multiple cultures, like you mentioned, the Dutch also and the English. I hope we can awaken into a time of power with rather than power over. And on the macro level, we're power with full Shakti, full Shiva, power with full, you know, if we look at the masculine and feminine, like positive and negative charges of electricity, or the atoms and molecules, then on a internal personal level, do we have the resilience to co-parent the other aspect of this yin and yang, or Shakti Shiva? You know, this open-heartedness, this purity and trust, with healthy boundaries and limits. So we're going to explore that on the retreat. And it's just reminded me that you have the collective pain body of a whole nation, of a whole planet. We have country-specific and region-specific differences in, as you call them, cultural viruses or templates or transgenerational trauma. And then we have our individual capacity to resource ourselves, and within a social context and upbringing that we all have, make choices and engage and transform ourselves through practices which radically shift our physiology and our state. We can, through, without substances, just with breath, qigong, movement. So yeah, power with our inner masculine and feminine. Do we need to feel like we need to support one with more of the other, or learn to relax one into surrender to give opportunity to the other? And this reminds me of this opportunity for the Portuguese and anybody to nurture the vulnerability and the beauty with confidence, clarity, boundaries, self-value, self-worth, stating your price. The Portuguese friends of mine that have been abroad and worked within international settings come back with such a confidence. So, and do very well, you know. I know lots, and I'm going to interview lots on this podcast, of Portuguese who've left and returned with knowing their value and their worth, and are doing very well in Portugal. So can we foster homegrown? There are many positive projects in Portugal which I want to cover, where people can get inspired and be nurtured in that balance of, if we call it masculine and feminine, the purity and the trust and the vulnerability in the individual to be carried in a way with agency, not compensatory bravado, but with a strong, gracious clarity of intent. And so, yeah, that's a lot of weaving we've touched upon there, Pete. Yeah.
Beautiful.
Thank you for your time, Pete, and look forward to speaking to you more on this topic this Thursday, the 25th of January, 7 p.m. And we invite you to discuss, come and be part of. We'll share some practices. We'll have some group discussion. We might have some breakout rooms to do some co-listening on this topic, and then come back and share in the group again. You'll be more than welcome. So the Zoom link's there. And as I said, I'm going to do a full podcast with Pete very soon, and that will be released on the YouTube channel. Thank you, Pete. I'll see you Thursday.
All right, thank you. Looking
Cheers,
forward
man.
to it.
Me too.
Yeah.